What is up, guys, and welcome to episode 7 of the Dad's Life podcast. I am your host, Sean Flack 2.0. Thank you for joining me. In today's episode, we are going to talk, I don't even know how to say it right, but I'm going to say we're going to talk about prerequisites for being a dad. But before we get into it, I definitely just want to say thank you for tuning in. Like, subscribe, share, comment, show your boy some love. If you haven't checked out the previous 6 episodes, head over to SeanFlack.com. Go ahead and check them out. There's links to this show. There's links to my other project we'll talk about later. Practical Pivots on there. And yeah, again, thank you for joining me this evening. So let's just get right into the topic, prerequisites of being a dad. It kind of hit me, we've talked about the sacrifice and how hard it is being a dad. And we talked about, how life-changing of an event it is. And most of the time when you're young, being a dad is not planned. It's not really thought out. Like, you know what? I want to be a dad. I'm in my 20s. I want to be a dad. Blah, 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 blah. It's not ever thought like that. For the most part, it's like I just got out the club. I'm drunk or, I'm with my chick and, y'all do your thing. And next thing, boom, pregnant. So I kind of want to talk about, I guess you want to, maybe we're going to talk about safe sex. Maybe we're going to talk about that. This is explicit, so, don't let your kids listen to it because we are going to be talking about stuff like that. So disclaimer on that. But my main thing is, as a man, as a dad, you are expected to provide for that child. If you are a dad and a husband, you're expected to provide for the family. So not only just a child, but your wife, potentially other children, pets, whatever. And that is the expectation of dad/husband or dad, to the child. So talking to these youngsters out here, the main thing that, of course, when you got your chick and things are getting hot and heavy, whatever, you're not really thinking about those things. You're just like, okay, I'm going to do this thing over here and get this done. And boom, oh my gosh, she's pregnant, all this stuff. I want to talk a little bit about responsibility, about self-responsibility before you get into that situation. The first thing is we have talked about the sacrifice. We have talked about the life-changing piece of it. So I want to talk about some prerequisites that you should probably ask yourself before you decide that, hey, I want to have a kid. So the first thing is when you say you want to have a kid, or even if it's not planned or whatever, or you're getting serious with your chick or whatever the case is, the first thing, dial back. I want you guys to dial back a little bit and think about yourself. Think about, can you provide for yourself? Can you take care of yourself? Or is somebody taking care of you? What is your current situation? Are you living with your mom? Is your girl paying your insurance? Are you, somebody else paying your rent? Or, do you got a roommate? All these things kind of go into, the act of, having sex. It's like, okay, cool. You young, you're doing your thing, whatever. But at the end of the day, can't believe it. At the end of the day, having sex is to produce a child. That's what humans do to produce children. That is the end game for the most part. It could be the oopsie, whatever. So you need to sit down with your partner, or first of all, you need to sit down with yourself. Look yourself in the mirror and ask these questions to yourself. Can you take care of yourself before you even think about jumping in a sack? Can you take care of yourself? Because potentially, if you jump into the sack, you may potentially have to take care of somebody else as well. So, kind of dial back, and think about that. Like, think about your situation before you kind of jump into that situation that could potentially put you in a really bad or really really, what's the word I'm looking for? A really, it's not coming to me. It's tasking. It's a situation that's going to take a lot from you. So whatever word that is, that's the word I'm looking for. Before you put yourself in a situation that's very tasking, we'll go with that. Kind of dial it back a little bit. Think about your situation. If you can't take care of yourself, somebody else is taking care of you. You living with moms, whatever the case is, you most likely, maybe about 95.99, maybe 99%, you shouldn't have kids. That's the bottom line. If you are still struggling, you're still, trying to figure out who you are, you're living at home, you haven't figured out what you want to do with your life, you want to travel, or you just don't really know, you probably shouldn't have kids. You shouldn't have kids. Even adults that are ready to have kids are never really ready. So when I say dial it back a little bit, before you jump into the sack with someone, and again, maybe your dad or whoever talked to you like this already, but I just really think this needs to be put out there again. Okay, the importance of, not only like safe sex, but just, thinking about contraceptives, things like that. Like, protect yourself as a man, as a youngster. And maybe if there's ladies out there that are also listening to this podcast, protect yourself as well from putting yourself in a bad situation. If you yourself cannot if you're not taking care of yourself, or you can't, or you're still trying to figure out life, or you still want to travel, you still want to do these things, think about proper protection for both male and female. Because when you get put in that situation, a lot of different factors go into, maybe your beliefs stop you from having an abortion, or maybe, that's the big thing, or maybe you get pressured by your parents to keep the baby, or, the same thing on the man's side, maybe she wants to have the baby, so you're not ready for it, or whatever, you kind of have to go with that. Ultimately, it's going to be her decision. But let's dial it back. Before you even jump into the sack, ask yourself these questions, and then protect yourself accordingly. How did I come to this topic? Why am I even talking about this? Well, I'm out and about doing my thing or whatever, and I'm just really seeing some really garbage cats out there. Let me just say that. Where they lady is paying for everything. Everything. So, they out there pumping gas, putting gas in the car, they out there, the women's holding the dough for the dudes. I mean, I just see it. Women picking up the check, and maybe I'm chauvinistic or whatever that is, but, as a father, you want to be a good example. You want to be, again, you're expected to provide, if anything, a good example. If you don't got to be the richest dude, but you got to provide something. And the main thing you can provide is an example. So if your example is, I'm going to have somebody else take care of me, I'm sorry, you shouldn't have kids. If that's the example you are going to give, you shouldn't have kids then. If you want somebody else to take care of you. We already have enough youngsters out here being disrespectful to people, not listening to authority, doing some crazy stuff out here, because that's what dad do, or that's what mom do, or whatever the case is, or there is no dad. So I'm sick and tired of seeing that. So I'm putting this out there, trying to nip it in the bud so we don't have fatherless sons out there or fatherless daughters out there. And then they end up growing up not having that right example, not trying to be a better person, and then society takes over, and there is no guidance, and then then the cycle perpetuates. And it's like now they're procreating, they're continuing that bloodline, that culture, that, and again, children really are a victim of their environment. That's what I believe. Holla at me on in the comments or whatever. DM me, PM me, whatever it is if you disagree. And that's fine. We can have an open discussion about it. But to me, a child is only, they're a victim of their environment. It don't matter black, white, yellow, green, purple, whatever the case is. If a kid is put in a bad situation, they're already losing. And as dads, and as this being a dad podcast, I got to put it out there and be like, hey, let's not do that. Let's if we're going to have kids, and I know I wasn't ready when I had my first, then let's start working towards enriching our kids. Let's start enriching ourselves before we have kids, so that when somebody is looking at us as an example or looking up to us, we have some type of moral basis, a moral standard. So, kind of going back to the original thing, if you can't take care of yourself, protect yourself. Make sure you're riding around with your own condoms. It's cheaper to buy a box of condoms than 18 years of child support. Or a box of diapers every week and wipes and all these things. I told you the sacrifice is real. These kids, these babies especially, didn't ask to be here. But when you decided to make that decision and jump in that bed with that person, you potentially could bring one in, unless you protect yourself accordingly. I just currently read an article that said it's going to run you about $270,000 over the course of 18 years to raise a child in today's society. $200,000 plus dollars. That doesn't include time, stress, all those things that come with raising a child. So, do I want to buy, a $12 box of condoms? Or do I plan on investing $270,000 over 18 years plus time, effort, all this craziness, when I ain't even ready for that? I can't even take care of myself. So, again, things happen. But you can protect yourself. I know one of my friends, we're not too close. He's more of an associate. But he knows what he wants. When I was talking to him about some stuff, I was really surprised. Young cat, he out there handling his thing. He likes having multiple ladies. Okay, I ain't mad at you, player. Handle your business. Do your thing. If that's what you're going to do, handle your business. And he was like, yeah, I'm getting my little operation done. I'm going to go get some sperm, freezed up or whatever. And then I'm going to get that operation done. Because I know this is what I want to do. I ain't mad at you. Protect yourself. Protect yourself against that obligation, that sacrifice that eventually may or may not come. So if he wants to have kids, he could pull his stuff out of, I don't know how that process works, but, and when he finds the right one, but he's young, he's like, man, I'm going to do it as much as I can. And I ain't mad at him. Handle your business. But he's protecting himself from an unexpected pregnancy. I think that was coined recently in one of these articles, unexpected pregnancy, blah, 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 blah. He ain't part of that game because it ain't going to be unexpected. So, there's, obviously you got condoms, contraceptives, you got what are those things called? IUD things. There's also, Plan B, and then of course abortion, if if you're in a state that's legal, it doesn't go against, whatever religious belief you have or whatever the case is. There's other ways after the fact, or number one, to prevent, and then after the fact, if it's like a oopsie thing. But you kind of deal with that how you want to. Obviously, all you guys are adults, and I ain't trying to preach or nothing like that. But what I'm saying, especially to all the men out there, is once you make that conscious decision to have sex, yes, to lay down with your lady, whatever the case is, the end game of that is to make a child. And if you aren't ready to have children, that, or you're still trying to figure out life, protect yourself from an unexpected pregnancy. because I know if somebody would have given me this advice, which, you know what, I love my son, I love my babies. My babies are playing. The oldest, not so much. That's coming from experience right there. This is coming from experience. It was so hard raising him. It was so hard dealing with what I'm dealing with now, and continually have to deal with. I wasn't ready then. I thought I was ready now, and I'm not. I'm still dealing with a lot. So let me retract what I said. If somebody gave me this advice, and I took it, then I wouldn't have my older son, which I love him to death. He drives me insane. He drives the wife insane. But that is my dude. So let me not say that. But it is a sacrifice until this day, until my dying breath. I'm always going to be a dad. And once you make that decision to lay down with somebody that may potentially happen, put you in that tasking situation that for the rest of your life you will always be, or you should be, if you're a responsible adult, are going to be obligated to take care of. So if you're not ready, you out there still traveling, you're out there trying to figure out what your career is going to be, or, what type of person you want to be, whatever the case is, do not have children. This is not the last time I'm ever going to say that either. Because some people, you just like, why did you have kids? Let's hope you don't have kids. Now, that might be mean, but come on. Everybody has said that about somebody. There's some truth in that. Number one, either they're not ready, or it'll just, they'll already be on the losing end of the spectrum. And, a lot of this comes from what I see out there in the public, where I'm at. And, I'm in the San Francisco Bay Area. I don't live a glamorous life. I'm a working class, blue collar dad that, but I see what society does to these kids, that if the parents aren't ready, or the dad, specifically dad, is about that strength. For me, dad is about that example, and they lack that. You could tell by the way they talk to people. You could tell by the way they handle authority. So you want to make sure that when you decide to make these decisions, and again, I'm not trying to preach, but I am saying this is a dad's podcast, and there's so much work that goes into being a dad. There's so much sacrifice. There's so much never ending. You're going to learn something new every day as a parent, not just a dad, but as a parent. But with the father will sacrifice more than anybody will ever tell you. Right? And not to say anything against the women, because the women, they create the baby, they nurse the baby, but dads in media, in public, and whatever, and that's the reason why I'm doing this podcast, because there isn't that much out there for dads on a serious tip. Every time I've looked up a dad's podcast, it was always about comedy. It was always about he ha ha. And as much as I liked a lot of those things, I really feel we need, a platform to talk about serious issues, to help each other, prepare each other, to support each other, because being a parent, period, is really, really hard. And being a dad is even harder, because today men are masculine. You're not supposed to talk about your emotions and things like that. And then that shit bottles up, and the next thing you know, you're yelling at your kid for no reason, or you catch yourself in a situation you don't want to be in, or whatever the case is. But, men out here, we have no mental support groups, no nothing like that. And I want this podcast to be about some serious dad life business. And, of course, we want to have fun with it. But today's episode, a little heavy, just because I'm very passionate about that. And I am not perfect by far. I'm trying to learn something new every day. I'm trying to make, some changes that I can make in my life and pursue things I want to do that I put on the back burner because of how serious it was for me to be a dad. And this podcast and this outreach is something that I could do to reach out and help other dads that were potentially in my position and work their way up in order to have an enriching, life, and, give good support for that child and take that serious. And at the same time, do that. I feel I have a message that's worth being shared, and that's what this podcast is about. Anyway, let me end on that because I know I kind of went on a tangent. I know, it's yeah, it's just being a dad's hard. And don't believe all the memes. It's not, yeah, it can be the best things ever happened to you. But at the same time, it's a whole lot of work. Anyway, that's all the time we have for today's episode. Thank you for listening all the way up until now. You have questions, comments, or any emotional outbursts, you can hit me up. At SeanFlack.com on Twitter. You can find me on Facebook. It's SeanFlack 2.0. Also, go over to the website, SeanFlack.com. You can leave me a message there. Send me your contact information. If you stay on the website long enough, I actually get alerts to my phone, and I could potentially message you back and forth there. But let's have a conversation about it. Again, this is Dad's Life Podcast, episode 7. And I'm just at a loss for words right now. Just because, I kind of got worked up. Anyway, thank you for listening. And until the next episode, we'll talk to you then. All right. Peace.